Welcome back to Astrovision, Spirituality, and Tarot. So we're going to be taking a look at Doja Cat's natal birth chart. Her first name is difficult to pronounce, no offense to her or her parents or whatever. So I'm just going to give it one try, and I already know I'm going to butcher it. But Amala Ratna Zadidel Dalamani. I'm not sure, but apparently so. She prefers to go by her stage name, which is Doja Cat. Now, this woman is definitely a superstar. There's no debate about that. And she got her start initially from being a social media troll. That is how I discovered Doja Cat. Now, obviously, Doja Cat didn't build her career just off of, being an internet troll. She is a musician, and that is represented by her zodiac sign. And she has a lot of energy going on within her birth chart that specifically points to her being this mega superstar. She has a lot of potential. It's just in her cards and you can see it through the stars. But unfortunately, Doja Cat has these qualities that are very detrimental and can be self-sacrificing in a way to a point that's very suffering. So we're going to discuss that today by taking a deeper look into her birth chart. Now, Doja Cat was born on October 20th, 1995 at 7:14 a.m. in Tarzana, California, according to AstroSeek. Now, the first thing that I'm going to be discussing in regards to Doja Cat's birth chart is going to be her ascendant. She has a Libra ascendant with Venus and Scorpio sitting in her first house. So initially, a lot of people who have this makeup, people's first impression of them tend to be like a love and hate situation. So it's going to be like that when people first encounter Doja Cat. They may fall in love with her, or they just may dislike what she stands for, and that's because Venus is in Scorpio, sitting in that first house where her ascendant is, placed. People may be more attracted to the development of Doja Cat and the development of her image and watching her transform. So people may be more attracted to the development of what she can do with her looks and the potential that she has with her face and what makeup can do to transform her look than just her overall beauty in general. So, when you have Venus and Scorpio, this is very good, especially on that side of making money. She definitely can make money from being in commercials, being a brand ambassador, or just being the face of ad campaigns for someone else's company. Because Venus is all about collaboration, but when you put it in Scorpio, Scorpio is all about ownership and it's all about making deals. So she'll be able to market herself and really profit off of her image. But the downside of that, since it's Scorpio, other people will also be able to profit off of her image. But since, again, it's Venus and Scorpio sitting in the first house, this can also be destructive, and she can very much so destroy that first impression when it comes to meeting other people. So this can go either way on the spectrum, depending on how she navigates this energy for herself. And again, with this makeup, her appearance, just, how she projects herself could be a little bit more intense than what meets the eye and very destructive or traumatic at times to those who may not favor this energy, to those who may not be all into the energy of Scorpio and what the qualities of Scorpio can bring to the table. Women with Venus and Scorpio in the first house in particular tend to be very promiscuous. These are the type of women that could be very vindictive and even jealous of other women's beauty. And even, of their partners. They can be jealous of their own partner's beauty, and that is just due to Venus being in Scorpio. And Scorpio tends to be very destructive naturally. Someone who has Venus and Scorpio, they're going to have trust issues. It's just going to be in the background within this area of their life. And since it's in the first house, this is going to be dealing with, her image, dealing with what she displays out there when you first meet her on that first encounter. These are the type of people who also can play around with getting plastic facial surgery. And people who have Venus in Scorpio, they just have to be careful depending on how it's aspected, because if you have Venus in Scorpio and you're trying to get plastic surgery, there is a high risk for getting a botched look. So you have to be careful if you have Venus in Scorpio, especially when it's in the first house. You have to be careful because that's playing around with your face, that's playing around with your image, and Venus in Scorpio can produce a worse outcome to where now you got to go back to the doctor because you didn't heal right. And that's the only doctor who can fix you because they're the only one who touched your face. Back on the topic of Doja Cat being, this world renowned big mega superstar, which I think she's getting to that point. I don't think she's achieved much to really decorate herself in that way, but I do think she has the potential to be this mega superstar, and we're about to discuss that in a bit. So, Doja Cat has a lot of placements pointing toward her becoming a superstar in particular. She does limit her light through self deprecation and having this lack of awareness, which really can translate to her having a lack of common sense. And these are all common traits for someone who is a 12th house person like Doja Cat herself. She has a huge amount of Libra energy going on in her 12th house. Her sun is in Libra, her Mercury is in Libra, her North Node and Chiron, and they sit in that 12th house. Now, this doesn't mean she has a stellium, because in order to have a stellium, you would need to have a certain amount of planets sitting in a house, but this still is a lot of energy sitting in this house. And this is where she could have a lot of pressure on her in this area of her life. So, just going through her 12th house, her sun sits here and she's a Libra woman, and typically Libra women are very likable, they're stylish, they're charming, and they're very, much known for being social butterflies, and they thrive off of partnerships and being in collaborations with others. With Doja Cat being a Libra woman, she's more likely to be inclined on being, a people pleaser or just taking that diplomatic approach when faced with a challenge, which a lot of Libras tend to go in that direction. Also, Doja Cat's sun is in the 12th house again, like I said earlier. So since, her sun is placed here, she's going to have qualities that are amplified by the 12th house, which is like a mixture of Neptune and Pisces. And Pisces are known for being very artistic, dreamy. These are the type of people who are very fragile when it comes to dealing with real world problems, and they can be too out of touch with reality. These are some people who can really lack some common sense. They can live in a fantasy world, people who have a lot of 12th house energy. These are your modern day celebrities. These are mythical superstition stories about Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy, or even like a monster being under your bed. All of that is 12th house energy. These are people who are seen but never truly heard on that deep soul level. And also, they can be extremely empathetic to a self-sacrificing point that can almost be seen as like they're suffering themselves. So since she does have her sun sitting in the 12th house, this just points to her being a celebrity. This more so points to her being destined for that superstar spotlight. With her having Mercury sitting in this house as well, this translates to her being a singer and being able to sing in a very eclectic way, somewhat of a Neptunian way, which is very out of the ordinary. It's very different. It's something that's artificially beautiful in a sense. So taking all of that into consideration and applying it to Doja Cat's Mercury, which she also has in Libra, and also her Chiron is in Libra, and they're both placed in the 12th house. Taking this into consideration, this can equate to Doja Cat having a deep desire and love for the arts and all things dealing with Neptune in the 12th house. So her stepping into music, becoming a superstar, becoming this fantasy that is desirable is definitely a part of her story. And Mercury can contribute to her life being highly publicized through blogs, through opinions of other people, social media, and news outlets, because Mercury deals with all of those things, such as literature and documentation, and being able to write about it and communicate about it. So with her, having a Libra North Node, and it's also positioned in the 12th house, this gives Doja Cat more of a focus on specific Neptunian themes within her life. And everything dealing with the 12th house is very deep, and it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Things aren't truly as what they seem to be when you bring rational ideas and nonfiction into the 12th house, because it takes a lot of imagination and delusional thinking and escapism to be comfortable with this kind of energy. That's why people with this energy tend to be famous or tend to be escapist in some way, or they achieve some type of notoriety that puts them in a position to where, their life is kind of like a gift or a curse, because the predicament that they're in tends to make them live this very private life that's filled with a lot of deep and shameful or insufferable secrets that is potentially masked by like the glitz and the glam of what the 12th house can produce. And the 12th house can represent Hollywood itself, and different places around the world that are similar to Hollywood and what Hollywood stands for, all of that show business lifestyle, but more so the behind the scenes. Since Doja Cat does have this heavy 12th house energy, the downside of her having this energy very much so can be the laziness that it can produce. It also can make for her being a liar. She has the potential to even cheat on her partners, or they can be doing this to her. So it's vice versa. Don't just think it's one-sided. It's definitely vice versa. She could be doing the cheating, or they could be doing the cheating. Stealing definitely could be taking place. These are qualities that could be produced by this energy. This can bring about struggle, mental disorders, feeling used and abused, or secretly using and abusing others. This also can bring about imprisonment, burdens, and intense pressure. Also, the downside to this energy is that her dreams and nightmares can feel like they're real. You know what I'm saying? They can feel like it's tormenting her in real life. So, people that have this energy, this 12th house energy, they can have a lot of delusional days. They definitely can be living in a fantasy world and create this fantasy outside of reality where they go and escape, because people with this energy, their dreams don't tend to make any sense. And with that being said, Doja Cat needs to be very cautious with this energy, especially as a superstar working in Hollywood or a musician working in that space, because with this specific energy, you know what I'm saying, with her having this heavy 12th house energy, since she's a superstar and they're so quick to write superstars off as crazy or whatever, Pisces or people who have 12th house energy, they can have mental breakdowns. It is something that can be a reality of theirs, and it's something that they can struggle with from time to time. And so, with her having this energy, she just has to be cautious, because she very much so could be put in some type of conservatorship, for having like behavioral problems or behavioral issues. And these even can be, unknown abusive addictions to substances or things that are hidden from the public that causes for her to react this way and for her to have these breakdowns and things like that. It maybe could be because of a withdrawal from something, or maybe she's not getting enough time to escape and to go into La La Land, so she goes crazy. People who have 12th house energy, they need to have time to themselves to go color in their coloring book. They need that time, because the real world and the pressures of the real world and what reality brings to the table, sometimes it's just too much for them. Also, with her having her North Node squaring her Leo midheaven, this aspect could challenge her reputation and even ruin her reputation or the reputation of the people that Doja Cat gets involved with. And this is due to the influence of her Leo midheaven being able to produce too much pride, but also having, the lack of consideration for other people's mannerisms. And just overall, Leos can have the lack of respect for other people. They can be very selfish and very inconsiderate of other people, because they're all about maintaining attention and making sure that they're putting on a performance for other people. Just alone with her North Node squaring her Leo midheaven, this can play a hand at producing some damage to her reputation. And it kind of doesn't help with her North Node sitting in the 12th house, because, again, this can produce a lot of delusional moments. This can produce a lot of smoke and mirrors, and with her being a Hollywood celebrity, this can bring a lot of that into her relationships. And with the influence of Leo, she's going to be very territorial in love, very prideful, but also selfish. So dating and finding a compatible partner who is trustworthy for Doja Cat, who can fully open up to her, is definitely going to be a challenge for her. And it's going to be a part of her life purpose that she finds her Prince Charming. With her having this North Node be in the 12th house, and it's a Libra North Node, I'm truly not mad at it. With her life purpose being her wanting to find love and wanting to find a Prince Charming. You know what I'm saying? That's like the least of anybody's worries in the real world. That's something that anybody could desire, anybody would truly want out of life. So, shout out to her for having that. A downside to Doja Cat having this Libra North Node sitting in the 12th house alongside her sun, Mercury, and Chiron, this can produce her having to chase validation from strangers and through her partners. So deep down, she probably desires to be loved on some empathetic level, but she is going about it in the wrong way. And instead of finding that value within herself and maybe family members, people that know her before, she became this superstar, her chasing it from strangers and her chasing it from partners, it's going to be very difficult because they are always going to see the finished product. They're never going to see the behind the scenes, which is what the 12th house really represents. So her North Node purpose definitely is going to be a challenge because since she's a celebrity, people aren't going to see her at her soul level, at who she truly is behind the glitz and the glam. This goes for her partners, and this goes for people that she just so happens to get involved with, such as friends and collaborators and things like that. They're never truly going to see her at that soul level. And so her North Node purpose is, truly being able to be okay with that and knowing that it's okay. She's going to have to accept some people can't see the differences within other people, and that is truly within itself what makes you different. That's what makes you unique, is that some people just can't understand your uniqueness. They just admire it. You know what I'm saying? So with her having this energy alone, this North Node in the 12th house, it's definitely going to be a challenge for her, and it's something that she's going to have to work at. Now, jumping on to Doja Cat's moon sign, which is in Virgo, sitting in the 11th house, her Virgo moon trines Neptune. So this is helpful. This is a helpful aspect because Doja Cat will be able to separate her ego from her emotions, and she'll be able to be more rational and discern between the real and the fake. So this will be helpful on that emotional side of things and dealing with comfort and what is going to get her to open up and be more human with other people. Since Doja Cat's Virgo moon is in the 11th house, she'll be more comfortable sharing her emotions in group settings and through sophisticated devices such as the microphone, the internet, social media applications, and even dancing and doing physical activities that require movement of the body, because Virgo rules the nerves and the tendons in the body. So she could be good at choreography and performing planned or dance routines and even expressing how she feels through that. So overall, Doja Cat will be prone to express her emotions online and sharing how she feels in a mercurial way, such as an interview or a blog or being in a magazine, down to publishing tweets or posting through her various profile pages. So since she has this Virgo moon in the 11th house, she's going to be one of the social media girls and just always online and always has an opinion. Virgos can be very, very highly opinionated. These are the most critical people out of the zodiac. A lot of the earth signs, there's only three: Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo. These three signs are very critical. The earth signs are very critical, and that's how they give it up. So with her being this Virgo moon, she's definitely going to be hard on herself, but she's also going to get some joy out of being hard on other people. You know, it's going to make her comfortable being, you know, this HBIC that's kind of telling people how to do their job. Virgos can be natural Karens, you know, so she definitely has some Karen energy within her. But in all seriousness, since Doja Cat is a Virgo moon, her own mother was probably very hard within the structure in the household. So her mom could have been one of those helicopter moms who was overbearing and nitpicky and just too precise with how things should have been ran in the house, or her mom could have been distant and very focused on professionalism and maintaining a career, because Virgos tend to be one track minded. They can't juggle it all. You know, this is why you see Virgos who are affluent and they make it to the top within the workforce. These are the type of Virgos who have a nanny, they have a housekeeper, they have, you know, someone to drive them and pick them up. And it's due to them being like a nervous wreck. They cannot handle too many things being placed upon them. This is why Virgos tend to be one track minded, and this is why they are perfectionists. You know, they have time to go over the routine and perfect things. You know, that's why Virgos tend to be the perfectionist out of the zodiac. And it's because they're going to take time to really gain some skill and some routine and precision within what they're doing. And they can't do that if they're juggling so many things at once. That's why this energy can play out with her mom either being like a helicopter mom, or her mom was probably distant. And I'm going to guess that Doja Cat's mother was more of the distant Virgo, which could have caused Doja Cat to be more anxious, being left at home alone or being left at home with a nanny or something like that. This could have gave Doja more time to be fixated on her own strengths and weaknesses, because, you know, Virgo moons are going to focus in on that. But this also can produce someone being very anxious and being very hard and tough on themselves. And not to be mistaken with you guys, I do believe that Doja Cat's mother is a professional artist. You know, that's her job. She paints pictures. And her father is an African movie actor. So, you know, she predominantly grew up with her mother. So she's more inclined and in touch with that side of her family. And overall, that could have produced a lot of dysfunction with her dad being out of the picture, and, you know, just with someone being of mixed race and not knowing their other half. I can see how that can produce a lot of discomfort, a lot of dysfunction, and a lot of questions into the picture. Also, something to take note is that Doja Cat's Virgo moon is sextiling Pluto and trining Uranus, and this can produce, you know, her having a deep and intense bond that is very unique with her mother. And since it's Pluto, it really can be love or hate. You know, it can balance back and forth between those two. But since Uranus is also being trined to her moon, this can just produce a very unique relationship with her mom that is very different. Also, with her moon opposing Capricorn, this can equate to her parents, you know, being of different social groups and of different classes within society. But this also can determine her relationship with her father being less favored than the relationship that she has with her mother. So Doja Cat could prefer her mom due to the deeper bond that she shares with her mom. And again, Pluto plays a role with that. Since her moon is opposing Capricorn, and Capricorn does represent the father, that specifically determines her relationship with her father being very estranged or non existent in some cases. Now, moving on to Doja Cat's second house, which she has an intense stellium in, and I also can relate to her on this because I personally have a second house stellium as well. Doja Cat's stellium contains Mars, Jupiter, and Pluto. Now, with these three planets being here, this definitely can produce her being somewhat of an extreme money machine. The second house has to deal with money, it has to deal with materialism and traditionalism, but also self improvement. It also deals with, you know, the vocal cords and vocalization, our comforts, what we define as, our comfort zone, but also maintenance and maintaining that comfort zone. So those are the qualities that the second house is known for and what the second house can represent, and it's represented by the zodiac sign Taurus. With Mars and Jupiter being in Sagittarius, she will have this fiery passion to initiate adventures through second house ways. So this is very good on that financial side for Doja Cat because she has the potential to make fast money in huge lump sum amounts. Because of this Sagittarius influence that she's having, this amplifies the energy of that. Doja Cat definitely has the potential to make a lot of money through tours, through selling singles, even getting into business and selling an item, selling a marketable item that she could put her face on or use her celebrity and really push that out into the masses. So she has a potential to be like a Rihanna and make a lot of money. But the downside of this energy is that she could be ungrateful. You know what I'm saying? She could be insensitive to the struggles of other people. Because with this placement and with these aspects, Jupiter being in Sagittarius could put her in a position, especially with it being in the second house, this can put her in a position to where she never has to go to the ghetto because Jupiter is going to put her in a position where she just has to focus on expanding and maintaining bigger things. And you know what they say, more money, more problems. So that's definitely going to be apparent with this energy. She does have Pluto in Scorpio sitting in the second house as well. This is very destructive. This specific planet sitting in this house, because it's its opposite opposing energy. Taurus governs the second house, and Taurus is the opposite sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. So with these two energies being opposites, but Pluto is sitting in its opposite house, it's going to be very destructive naturally. And it's going to be very difficult and very uncomfortable in this position. She's going to have to learn to get some value about second house things and to not be destructive in this area of her life. She's going to have to be careful when it comes to signing contracts. This can put her in a financial predicament where she's being used to turn a profit for other people, but she's not benefiting off of any of the money that's coming in. So she has to be careful with having Pluto be in the second house, especially since it's parallel to Capricorn. It could be valid to say that she's already in this predicament. She's already making pennies off her music while, the people that are in the corporate office, they're making the millions. This energy could also ruin her self-esteem. It can diminish her self-esteem at times and really put her in an insecure place. Having Pluto in the second house is unfavorable, and especially for a singer. Trust me, I know, I have this placement myself. And when you are a singer and you have Pluto in the second house, you need to stay away from the cigarettes. You need to stay away from the weed. You need to stay away from anything that could potentially damage your voice, because a bad transit can really do some intense damage that is, non-repairable. Because I do know that Doja Cat had a big scandal with smoking cigarettes or vaping the electronic ones, which, she just has to be careful of and cautious about, because that Pluto influence could damage her voice and ruin her distinctive vocal techniques. I'm laying it out flat and I'm telling you how it is, girl. Like, leave it alone. You know what I'm saying? Now, jumping into her Uranus and Neptune, which are both in Capricorn, sitting in her third house. This specifically points to Doja Cat lacking social cues, lacking social awareness, and being a bit more awkward when it comes to communicating with other people. She could be inclined to say something completely shocking because of that Uranus influence, or she could reveal something that's very shocking and painful, something that's even secret in conversation because of that Neptune influence and also that Uranus influence. Since this energy is in the third house, and the third house does represent education, early childhood, even your learning abilities. This is where Doja Cat could be challenged on her own intellect. She either could be very bright, very sharp, because Uranus will produce someone to be very, quick on their feet and intellectual, or she could just be downright challenged in this area, and that just may shock a lot of the people that know her, especially her fans. And Uranus can represent, groups. With her having these planets sitting in Capricorn in the third house, this definitely can point to Doja Cat just lacking some common sense. Even at a younger age, there could have been, some cognitive abilities that were developed at a slow pace. You know what I'm saying? They weren't developed at the normal, average, typical speed of everyone else. She can just be slower at comprehending things and lack the common sense that the average person has. But artistically speaking, she could be very good at writing intricate lyrics and messages that can only be translated or performed by her, because Uranus and Neptune both play a hand in someone being unique, but also unique in an artistic and artificial way. Also, something that I do want to make clear about Doja Cat, especially with her having this third house energy, and the third house represents your hood, it represents your neighborhood and your city. This can point to her growing up in Los Angeles and being surrounded by celebrities and other shocking things that may have caused a lot of excitement or blood rushing out of body experiences. Uranus and Neptune both can play a hand at that, and the third house is going to represent your hood, your childhood, where you grew up. This placement could bring challenges for her when it comes to Doja Cat crafting the image of this hood female rapper who's from the streets. You know what I'm saying? She's going to have a difficult time being placed in the hip hop spectrum due to her not really coming from that life. She definitely is one of those girls who's from the opposite side of the tracks. And Doja Cat is from Beverly Hills. She's from the valleys of LA, wherever she comes from. That's where she's from. You know what I'm saying? The third house can be represented by Gemini, and Gemini really is some all around the way type of energy. It really is some hood energy. And with her having Neptune and Uranus being in Capricorn in the third house, this specifically points to her putting on a front, you know what I'm saying? Especially because of that Neptune energy. She's going to put on the front. She's going to know how to turn on the black scent and be very shocking. But to people who really come from that life, they're not intrigued or oohed and awed by someone like a Doja Cat. Like, if she sticks to the bubblegum pop and those type of songs and that type of image, instead of trying to be a hip hop artist, I think she would have a better shot at being this mega superstar, and her potential and her natal purpose could have more of a satisfying fulfillment. But with her trying to craft this hood image and be like, this promiscuous video vixen type chick who's like a ghetto all the way around girl, it's not really gonna work with her or for her. She just needs to give it up with trying to put on this front. I don't think she purposely does that, but when she does the black scent in her music, and she like nigga this, nigga that, and she trying to talk like she's from the hood, it's like, girl, nah, you're not like that, and cut it out. You know what I'm saying? Because someone who's really from the hood, they can see through that. She can get away with being a culture vulture. A lot of the mutable signs, in fact, all of the mutable signs can get away with being a culture vulture. It's just that they have that go with the flow quality about them, and people tend to really buy into that. Doja Cat does have Lilith in Cancer, and this is sitting in the ninth house. This can play out to where she will be very unapologetic and lack any shame or appreciation for other people's truth in regards to their race, their culture, or even their religion. She's going to be very ignorant to that, and this can even bring some problems in for her when it comes to touring. You know what I'm saying? She could run into a lot of problems when it comes to breaking the law, not respecting her fans, not respecting, their culture, their ethnicities, their customs in their countries. She's just going to be one of those people who's going to be very unapologetic and rude and even ignorant about those ninth house things, which deals with spirituality. It deals with people finding their personal truth and truth for other people. It deals with religion. With her having Lilith in Cancer, and it's in the ninth house, that definitely is unfavorable. This is one of those atheist aspects or one of those non-believer aspects where someone who has this placement can get a rush out of just being on that opposing side of what the traditional norms are. So with Doja Cat being able to challenge people's environments, challenge their religious beliefs, their comfort zones, she's going to get a kick out of that and make her feel like she's on top of the world. And with her being a Virgo moon, this kind of ties into her comfort. With her being analytical and critical of other people, this kind of ties into her own comfort zone. And I know Doja Cat had an occultist themed birthday party. And, with this placement, Cancer being in Lilith, tied, sitting in that ninth house, this very much so can point to this type of energy of her being an occultist or a Satanist or someone studying these deeper, darker things that are less seen within the public or less talked about. They're very taboo amongst people in conversation within everyday average topics. Even dark things such as role playing, you know what I'm saying? You can see this with this aspect, especially just because she has a lot of that 12th house energy. She could be one of them, one of the mixed girls who is just out of touch, is just very, very different and unhinged. Doja Cat could potentially, allegedly, be one of those girls who, just is a little dark, has a lot of dark humor, and even to a point of perversion where she's cosplaying or role playing with her partner, where maybe she's a housemaid and her boyfriend is pretending to be a slaveholder and they're dressed in the 1700s. And this very much so could be something that she does and gets a kick out of. You know what I'm saying? This is some very dark, dark energy. And that's why I say Doja Cat very much so is a demented girl. I do believe that she is demonic and she is, deprived of the light that she once had. And just from looking within her birth chart, you can see that it was meant for her to embark down these dark areas within her life so that she can learn some type of lesson within these areas in her life. Again, she has a lot of 12th house energy. So she's going to be a very spiritual person, even if it's not of the light. She's just going to be a very spiritual person. So Doja Cat very much so could be a host for some spirits. She could be a host for some demons. There's no doubt about that, just with all of that 12th house energy. And her sun is sitting there in that 12th house. And she's a Libra. So she could balance out the energy of the demon. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be so real with y'all. I'm not trying to take this to like a Neptunian place, but we are talking about a girl with heavy 12th house energy. But since she's a Libra, she very much so could be balancing out her life force energy with something dead and something scorpionic and something demonic. And I believe so. I'm going to put my heavy, passionate stance on my beliefs. And I believe that this girl is half demonic. I very much so do. And I'm going to stand on that, especially since she's good at mimicking other people. That's a quality of demons. They mimic their praise. They mimic the sound of their praise, the sound of their voice, the sound of their scream or whatever, and then they attack them. Another thing to focus in on is that Doja Cat has Saturn in Pisces sitting in the 5th house, which can represent her father being a famous celebrity as well, because him having done work in the arts and being an actor, even though, his work is more notorious within the continent that he's from, he still is somewhat of a celebrity and he still is someone who is famous. So with her having Saturn in Pisces, that can specifically point to her father also being in the entertainment business and being, somewhat of a celebrity or somewhat of a public figure. But generally, when I see this aspect, Saturn in Pisces, this aspect is in the charts of a lot of public figures. A lot of celebrities have this specific aspect or this specific placement. 9 times out of 10, this energy is more like the Wizard of Oz meets the real world, or Alice in Wonderland meets the real world. This energy can determine or can equate down to the final image or the big entertainment that is being produced by these people, such as actors, musicians, people who work in that field of Neptunian and Piscean things. This just tends to play out with that big image that they're putting out here is more so controlled by some type of orderly, structured system. And 9 times out of 10, this aspect can be very karmic and extremely punishing, especially when the rules set out by Saturn in Pisces are not being respected or not being taken into consideration. With her having Saturn in Pisces, she is going to have to learn some appreciation for being famous, for being a celebrity, and being known and having this lifestyle that's a part of the VIP, something that's desirable, but it's not seen to a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? It's only heard about, but it's not visually seen to a lot of people. So she's going to have to learn how to gain some appreciation about being a celebrity. Saturn in Pisces also can produce someone being unaware and lacking a lot of common sense. She could just be out of touch with reality, especially with her being a superstar. Since this placement is trining Venus, there's definitely no doubt about Doja Cat loving what she does and being able to entertain people and sing her songs. The only downside or the only thing that she possibly may dislike about this energy is that it feels like work. It could possibly feel like a job. And that's due to Saturn. The influence of Saturn can make any energy, wherever it's placed, feel like a job. Saturn can produce a lot of tough lessons, and it can do a lot to your reputation, especially when you work with that energy to work towards understanding what Saturn is trying to do for you. Then it really can work in your favor, and especially on your reputation. And in return, you'll be able to build a strong, stable reputation and be very reputable amongst, the area wherever Saturn is placed in your life. With her having her Saturn in Pisces, being in the 5th house, she's just going to have to learn how to be more appreciative for her lifestyle being so public and being in a public position within her life. She's just going to have to learn how to follow some rules and regulations within doing that. And she's one of those celebrities who has a tough time following the rules that are set upon her. But overall, Doja Cat is a very damaging person, especially on the side of being self-damaging and having a lot of self-sabotage moments and scandals and things like that. She just has to be very careful, especially having Saturn in Pisces in the 5th house. A lot of these traumatic, humiliating moments will just so happen to take place within the public eye because she's an entertainer, she's a performer, she's a celebrity, she's a superstar, and her life is very much so public. So she just has to be very careful because, again, this energy has a tendency to produce a lot of karmic, hard, tough lessons. And since it's in the 5th house, these lessons can be blown up and they can have the potential to be humiliating. They can have the potential to be very embarrassing. And not only for herself, you know what I'm saying? Other people who are vicariously living through her, her fans, people who support her, investors, people who have money tied into this girl and invested in this girl, they themselves could even have, their own internal embarrassment for when she does something that is extremely humiliating. You know what I'm saying? People that stand with her and even support her can be embarrassed. So she just has to move with caution and march at the beat of her own drum and at her own pace with this energy, she has the potential to be gullible and be controlled by other people, but she needs to learn how to trust herself and look within her own value and learn to build upon her potential and find some stability within that, so she's able to really stand within her own confidence and stand within her uniqueness and not put on a front. You know what I'm saying? Because in some aspects, within going over her chart, it very much so seems like she is putting on a front and masking herself, you know, through the glitz and the glam, or through this artificial image that she's crafted for herself. So once she learns to step away from that, Doja Cat very much so will be very, very powerful. And with that, you know, I hope that you guys enjoyed this interpretation. Like, subscribe for more content like this, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.